Hello and welcome to SIC Philosophy News. This is your weekly dispatch from the world of philosophy, where we track the pulse of the discipline, from the ivory tower to the courtroom.
And this week, the pulse is racing. We are looking at a landscape defined by conferences, publications, and controversies where ideas don't just describe the world anymore, they are actively colliding with it.
Actively colliding, yeah. It feels like a dispatch from a front line, doesn't it? If I had to summarize the vibe of everything we've read, from, these dry administrative emails to panicked court dockets, it feels like the infrastructure of thinking is jamming.
That is the perfect way to frame it. The machinery of how we produce, verify, and debate truth is under immense stress. We've got a roadmap today that takes us through, I think, 4 distinct layers of this crisis.
Right. We're going to start with the Academy itself. That's segment 1. We're talking about the return of the big conference and a massive clog in the publication pipeline at one of the world's most prestigious journals.
Then we move to segment 2, the pressure readings. We have a stack of new books and articles that just came out January 2026, and they challenge our basic assumptions about, well, state legitimacy, the metaphysics of money, and even the ethics of social robots.
In segment 3, we're looking at the fault lines. We have AI hallucinations that are now resulting in actual legal fines and a scandal involving fake citations in a major academic book about, and you can't make this up, AI ethics.
And we'll wrap it all up in segment 4 by synthesizing this into 2 deep dives. The crisis of what we're calling epistemic authority and the ontology of AI interaction, plus our 3 questions of the week.
Let's get into it. Segment 1, what is happening in the Academy?
The Academy here isn't just a metaphor, We are talking about the physical and the logistical infrastructure of philosophy. And the biggest signal comes from the APA, the American Philosophical Association.
The mothership.
The mothership, exactly. For the last few years, the APA has been running an experiment. They moved some of their big divisional meetings fully online. This was partly for COVID, of course, but it evolved into a question of accessibility, climate change.
And now the news from mid-January is definitive. The experiment is over.
It's over. They're going back to in-person.
I want to pause on this because it sounds like such a boring administrative update. Okay, we're going back to hotels. But the reasons they cited in the source material, they tell a much bigger story. They mentioned lower participation, organizational burdens, tech difficulties, but lower participation is the one that really jumps out at me.
It should. I mean, think about what an academic conference actually is. It's not just listening to someone read a paper. You can do that on YouTube anytime. It's about the friction.
What friction?
The intellectual friction. When you are in a Zoom room, the social norms, they encourage you to mute yourself. You turn off your camera. If you disagree with the speaker, you might, type a polite comment in the chat, or just check your email. But the APA is signaling that this format failed. It failed to sustain the discipline.
It's the death of the hallway track.
Precisely. The hallway track is where the real philosophy happens. It's bumping into a colleague at the coffee cart, or cornering a senior professor in the lobby of some Marriott to challenge their reading of Kant. That physical presence, it creates a level of vulnerability and intensity that a screen just filters out.
But there's a conflict of values here, isn't there? Because on one side, you have the quality and community argument. We need to be in the room to have real debates. But on the other, you have climate and accessibility.
And that tension is completely unresolved. By returning to the big in-person meetings, the institution is making a hard choice. They are effectively saying that the epistemic benefit of being there, of that physical community, it outweighs the carbon footprint of flying thousands of philosophers to Baltimore or Chicago.
It suggests philosophy as a practice is stubbornly physical. It kind of resists virtualization.
I think that's exactly right. And speaking of those locations, we have 2 specific meetings to talk about. The Eastern Division meeting just wrapped up in Baltimore. That was January 7th to 10th. And the Central Division is happening right now, or just about to start, in Chicago, February 18th to 21st.
And when you look at the programs for these meetings, you see the content is shifting too. The Eastern Division in Baltimore, it wasn't just, the greatest hits of the 18th century. There were awards explicitly tied to AI 2050.
AI 2050, that sounds like a sci-fi movie title, not a philosophy panel.
Doesn't it? But it signals where the money and the prestige are flowing. AI has moved from being this, niche topic in applied ethics to the absolute center of institutional legitimacy. We saw panels on AI alignment taking center stage.
And then looking at the Chicago program for the Central Division, this one struck me as even more aggressive. There is a specific panel titled Knowledge and Belief in Large Language Models.
That title is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
So much. Because it frames the issue as one of knowledge and belief. It's not asking, is the chatbot useful or is the chatbot dangerous? It's asking, does the chatbot know?
That's a huge step.
It's an epistemological question. It suggests that philosophers are beginning to treat these systems not just as tools, but as cognitive entities, or at least entities that challenge our very definitions of cognition.
And it's sitting right there alongside this philosophy in perilous times focus. It feels like the discipline is trying to figure out if it is an observer of the apocalypse or, a participant in trying to stop it.
And while the Americans are angsting in hotel ballrooms, I have to mention a counterexample from the sources that was actually quite beautiful. World Logic Day at the University of Warsaw on January 14th.
Oh, I saw this, the Scottish cafe tradition.
Yes, this is a callback to the Law Warsaw School of Logic in the early 20th century. You had Tarski, Bidach, these giants of logic, and they used to meet in the Scottish cafe and literally write mathematical problems on the marble tabletops. The event in Warsaw was bridging that history with modern AI logic.
It's a nice reminder that philosophy doesn't just happen in a massive convention center. It happens in these local nodes.
It does, but those nodes, they rely on a global infrastructure to publish their work. And that infrastructure is, well, it's clocking up. We have to talk about the Journal of Philosophy.
Okay, this is the big scary story of the week for anyone trying to get tenure. For listeners who don't know, the Journal of Philosophy, or JPhil as it's called, is one of the titans. It's the factory where the gold standard arguments are minted.
And the factory has just stopped the assembly line. On January 16th, 2026, the editors announced a suspension of new submissions. They are effectively closed for business until late summer 2026.
Just to handle a backlog.
Just to handle the backlog. They're drowning in submissions. But I want to explore what this actually means for the economy of prestige.
Well, just think about the timeline. If I have a brilliant, groundbreaking idea about the ethics of generative AI today, and I wanted to submit it to JPhil, I can't.
You can't.
I have to wait until August. Then peer review takes, what, 6 months? A year?
Oh, easily. Sometimes two.
So my article about the crisis of 2026 might not even be published until 2028.
By which time the technology you're criticizing will be 3 generations obsolete. This is the crisis of slow thinking versus fast reality. Philosophy prides itself on being slow, deliberate, rigorous. But when the subject matter is accelerating at the speed of Moore's law, or, frankly, faster the traditional peer review pipeline, it just turns into an archive of the past rather than a participant in the present.
It creates a dilemma for researchers, right? Do you publish in a lesser journal to get the idea out now? Or do you wait for the prestige of JPhil and risk being completely irrelevant by the time it prints?
Exactly. It forces a trade-off between rigor and relevance. And if the top journals are clogged, it jams the whole signal mechanism of the field. Who gets hired? Who gets tenure? It all depends on these publications. If the pipeline is broken, the career ladder is broken too.
The infrastructure of thinking is jamming. That title is feeling more and more appropriate by the minute.
It is. But despite the jam, some things did get through. Which brings us to segment 2.
Right. Segment 2, Books, Awards, and New Fronts. We have a stack of publications that dropped in January 2026. And these aren't just textbooks. They feel more like pressure readings on societal cracks.
Let's start with the first one. The Philosophical Review, the January 2026 issue. There's a major article by a philosopher named Brinkman, and it's called Autonomy and Legitimacy.
Okay, this sounds like standard political philosophy, but the source suggests it's attacking a very, very sacred cow, consent theory.
It is. The standard liberal story of why the government gets to tell you what to do is consent. You agree to it, maybe not explicitly, but, tacitly, by living here, voting, accepting benefits. Brinkman is arguing that this entire story is false.
False how? Like we didn't actually agree.
False in a much deeper way. He argues that if you take the concept of autonomy seriously, the idea that you are the responsible author of your own actions, you cannot derive state legitimacy from consent.
Because handing over my authority to the state would be a violation of my own autonomy? Is that the idea?
Essentially, yes. It revives a very old, very radical worry. Sometimes it's called philosophical anarchism. If autonomy is the highest value, then authority is always a problem. You can't just sign it away and remain autonomous.
So the listener question here is, if we didn't or couldn't agree to the state, what binds us to the law? Is it just? Is it just force?
Well, that's the scary implication, isn't it? If the moral magic of consent evaporates, we are left with the raw, brutal reality of power.
Speaking of power, let's talk about money. There is an article in Ethics also January 2026 by Burks and Carroll. It's called Sin, Tyranny, and the Metaphysics of Money.
This one's going to upset a lot of people's intuition.
It certainly upset mine. We all have this intuition that taxes are our money. The government takes $5 from me and then gives it to a hospital. So I feel like I have a right to say, don't use my $5 for something I hate.
Right. Don't use my money for abortion. Don't use my money for religious schools. This is a standard argument in, what's called public reason. We feel we have a moral claim because we are the source of the funding.
But Burks and Carroll are saying we aren't.
They're arguing based on the metaphysics of modern fiat currency. The state creates money. It doesn't need your $5 to pay the hospital. It can simply credit the hospital's account into existence.
So what are taxes for then, in that model?
In this view, which aligns with things like modern monetary theory, taxes are there to delete money from the system, to control inflation, not to fund spending. But here is the kicker. If the state creates the money for the hospital out of thin air, it is not spending your tax dollars.
So the argument, don't use my money for X, is it's metaphysically void.
Exactly. Burks and Carroll argue that the taxpayer's standing to object to government spending on moral grounds is based on a false metaphysics. The state isn't a bucket that holds your gold coins. It's more like a scoreboard that just adds and deletes points.
Wow. That shifts the debate entirely. You can't argue it's my property anymore. You have to argue this policy is bad. It strips away the proprietary veto power of the taxpayer.
It forces us to argue about values directly rather than hiding behind our wallets.
Let's move from money to machines. We have a new book from MIT Press, January 2026, Robo-Philosophy, edited by Seidwick, Hockley, and Nuskoff.
I love the title, not Philosophy of AI. Robo-philosophy.
It sounds kind of retro, like a 1950s magazine.
It does, but the content is very forward-looking. It shifts the focus away from the brain in a box, the disembodied AI like ChatGPT, and puts it squarely on social robotics. Embodied machines, robots in nursing homes, robots in schools.
This is where I start to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The book focuses on the ontology of social interaction.
Correct. So the question isn't, is the robot smart? The question is the robot a partner?
But isn't that just a deception? I mean, if I put a robot in a nursing home to hold a patient's hand and the patient feels comforted, isn't that just a lie? The robot feels nothing. It's metal and plastic.
And that is the core conflict. The book challenges us to ask, does a social relationship require two inner lives? Or is it enough that the human perceives a relationship? If the patient feels loved, does it matter that the lover is just a script?
It matters to me. It feels like a hallucination of a relationship.
And yet, as the demographic crisis hits and we don't have enough human caregivers, this isn't going to be some sci-fi hypothetical. It's going to be a policy choice. This book is trying to build the ontology for that reality.
It's terrifying. And speaking of standardizing these nightmares, we have one more volume, Contemporary Debates in the Ethics of Artificial Intelligence, from Wiley, late 2025.
This is a signal of what Thomas Kuhn called normal science. When you start publishing textbooks with titles like Contemporary Debates, it means the field has, in a way, settled down.
It's the greatest hits album.
It is. It formats all the chaos into these neat binary debates. Pro-con, does AI have moral status? Pro-con, is alignment possible?
And why does this matter?
Because of pedagogical formatting. We are deciding right now how the next generation of students will think about AI. By locking these questions into binary debates, we might be oversimplifying the reality. We are teaching the AI problem the same way we teach the abortion debate or the free will debate. It just becomes another genre.
We're domesticating the monster so we can put it on a syllabus.
Or perhaps we are just trying to find a common language. But there is a huge risk that the textbook version of AI ethics misses the messy, weird, unpredictable reality of what these systems actually do.
Which brings us perfectly to segment 3. Because the reality is messy and it's landing in court. This is Controversies and Fault Lines.
And before we dive in, we need a ground rule. We are going to separate the fact, what the source explicitly says happened, from the interpretation, what we think it means philosophically.
Right, an integrity checkpoint. Documented fact versus philosophical spin.
So first up, the hallucinating lawyer.
This story has been making the rounds, but the Reuters report from February 18th, 2026 puts a specific price tag on it.
Okay, fact T. A U.S. appeals court ordered a lawyer named Heather Hirsch to pay a $2,500 fine. She submitted a brief that contained hallucinations, citations of cases that do not exist, generated by an AI tool.
She didn't check her work.
She didn't just not check, she submitted fiction to a court of law.
Okay, so interpretation. This is all about epistemic responsibility.
Yes. The court is drawing a line in the sand. It is saying, we do not care what tool you used. You are the epistemic agent. You are the one who vouches for the truth.
It's interesting that the fine isn't millions of dollars. It's $2,500. It feels almost bureaucratic, like a speeding ticket.
But the meaning of that fine is profound. It's a truth tax. It attacks the entire efficiency model of AI. The whole point of using AI is to be fast and cheap. But if the court says, if you are fast and cheap, we will punish you, it forces the human back into the loop. It forces you to verify.
But can we verify? I mean, that leads directly to the second controversy, the Springer Nature scandal.
This one hurts. SET. Reports emerged between December 2025 and February 2026 regarding a book published by Springer Nature, one of the most prestigious academic publishers in the world.
And the book was about AI ethics.
You can't make this up. The book was about the legal and ethical aspects of generative AI, and it was found to contain unverifiable or, in some cases, just completely fictitious citations.
So the book about the dangers of AI was polluted by the dangers of AI.
Yeah. Interpretation. This is a breakdown in the chain of custody for knowledge.
I mean, think about what a citation is. It's a promise. It says, I am not making this up. I am building on the work of someone else. It's the currency of the entire academic economy.
And that currency is being counterfeited. If I can't trust the footnotes in a Springer book, the cost of doing research skyrockets. I have to check every single reference manually. I can't assume anything is real.
It's an epistemic arms race. The AI generates plausible-sounding bullshit at the speed of light, and we're trying to catch it with butterfly nets.
And Springer has initiated an investigation, and they're talking about integrity tools, but the damage is done. The trust is fundamentally broken.
There's one more controversy here from the Philosophical Quarterly, January 2026, an article by Leighton Hardy titled, Epistemic Infringement.
This connects directly to the fake citations. Leighton Hardy is arguing about propaganda.
Fact? The article argues that propaganda is not just a lie.
Right. Interpretation. It is an infringement on epistemic agency.
Okay, break that down. What's the difference between lying to me and infringing on my agency?
Well, if I lie to you, I give you a bad piece of data. It is raining outside when it is sunny. You can check that. But epistemic infringement suggests that propaganda, or perhaps these AI hallucinations, it damages your capacity to check. It floods the zone with so much noise, or it manipulates your biases so effectively that you lose the ability to process truth.
You aren't just being tricked, you're being cognitively disabled.
Exactly. It's a violation of the person, not just a violation of the facts.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. Broken conferences, jammed journals, fake lawyers, counterfeit footnotes. Let's take a breath and try to synthesize this in segment 4, the deep dives.
We have two major themes that really pull all these threads together.
Theme A, the crisis of verification.
Look at the pattern. The Journal of Philosophy is backlogged. Institutions can't keep up. Springer Nature has fake citations. Institutions failed to verify. The lawyer was fined. Institutions are punishing the failure to verify.
We are moving from a high-trust economy to a zero-trust economy.
That is the key shift. For the last century, academia and law operated on high trust. If you cited a case, I assumed it existed. I might check your interpretation, but I didn't check if the case itself was a hallucination.
Because lying was hard. Writing a fake legal brief used to take just as much effort as writing a real one.
Exactly. The cost of generating text was high. Now, the cost of generating text is zero. I can generate a 500-page book in an hour.
And it will sound plausible.
It will sound perfect. It will have the aesthetics of truth without the substance of truth. And this means the cost of verification has shifted entirely to the receiver. You have to check everything.
And that is just an exhausting tax on our attention. It's like a denial of service attack on the human mind.
So what's at stake? The validity of the scientific record. If we don't solve this, the archive of human knowledge becomes unreliable. We won't know what is real and what is machine-generated noise.
What to watch next week? Watch the publishers. Springer's investigating. But will other journals start requiring human authorship statements? Will we see a huge crackdown on AI tools and submissions?
I think we will see a massive recoil. The verification tax is about to get very, very expensive.
Okay, theme B. The shift from is AI good to does AI know?
This is the ontological shift. We linked the APA panel in Chicago, Knowledge and Belief in LLMs, with that robo-philosophy book.
The conversation has absolutely changed. 2 years ago, it was all ethics. Is this biased? Is this fair?
Now it is epistemology. Does this thing know? Does it believe?
Why does that distinction matter, though? Who cares if we call it knowledge or data processing?
Because words carry weight.
Mhm.
If we decide an AI has knowledge, we are tempted to give it authority. We treat it as an expert. We let it make medical diagnoses. We let it write legal briefs.
But if we decide it's just a stochastic parrot, just probability math,
Then it has no authority. It's just a calculator, a very fancy autocomplete.
what's at stake? Our relationship to the truth tellers. Are we handing over the keys of wisdom to a machine that is just statistically mimicking wisdom, or are we actually creating a new kind of knower?
And what to watch next week? That panel in Chicago. I want to know if the philosophers are willing to use the word belief for a machine. That is a Rubicon. Once you cross it, you can't go back.
It's a brave new world. All right, let's wrap this up with segment 5, the 3 questions of the week.
These are the questions we want you to carry around in your head.
Question 1. Based on the lawyer and the Springer stories, is the problem of AI hallucinations a technical glitch to be patched or a permanent new tax on our epistemic responsibility? In other words, are we doomed to be the eternal proofreaders for the machine?
Question 2. Based on the APA and the journal backlog, when prestige journals take years to publish, does rigor become a synonym for obsolete? Can philosophy even move at the speed of the 21st century without losing its soul?
And question 3. Based on that ethics article about money, if the state creates money rather than taking it, does the taxpayer lose the moral right to dictate public values? If it's not your money, is it still your country?
That last one is going to keep me up at night.
Me too. So, to close this out, my weekly thesis. This was a week in which philosophy showed that we are struggling to build an infrastructure of truth that can withstand the speed of automation. The pipes are bursting.
In my sign-off, read the footnotes before they disappear.
Thanks for listening to SIC, Philosophy News. We'll see you next week for another deep dive.
Stay curious.